The Ethics of Genetic Engineering in Sci-Fi, Shaping Humanity's Future Introduction. Welcome to Emperor Science and Fiction, Sci-Fi. Today, we're exploring the ethical dilemmas of genetic engineering as depicted in sci-fi. From creating designer babies to reviving extinct creatures, genetic engineering has captivated imaginations. This technology presents both incredible possibilities and serious moral questions. Join us as we dive into how sci-fi has addressed the promises and perils of genetic manipulation. The promise of genetic engineering in sci-fi genetic engineering is often portrayed as a tool to improve human capabilities. In Gattaca, 1997, society uses genetic selection to create the perfect human. Designer babies are crafted to ensure they possess desirable traits, like intelligence or athleticism. The movie shows us a world where genetic manipulation eliminates weaknesses. Parents decide which genes their child should have, potentially eliminating diseases. This concept has both fascinated and frightened viewers. While the prospect of eliminating genetic diseases is promising, it raises questions of inequality. In Star Trek, genetic modification is portrayed in the character Khan Noonien Singh. Khan is a genetically engineered superhuman with advanced strength and intelligence. Sci-fi often uses these enhanced humans to explore themes of superiority and control. The ethical question is whether genetic enhancements would divide humanity. Would it create a class of genetically superior individuals? Gattaca presents a society divided by genetic elitism, where natural-born individuals are considered inferior. The prospect of creating a perfect human challenges our ideas of what it means to be human. The Island, 2005, explores cloning and genetic manipulation for organ harvesting. Genetically engineered clones exist solely to provide organs for their human counterparts. The movie raises questions about whether it's ethical to create beings for specific purposes. Would these clones have rights? Would they be considered human? These stories force us to think about the responsibilities we have as creators. Reviving extinct species, the Jurassic Park scenario. Jurassic Park, 1993, is one of the most iconic films about genetic engineering. In the movie, scientists use DNA to bring dinosaurs back to life. This concept raises the question, just because we can do something, should we? The consequences in Jurassic Park show how technology can spiral out of control. The revival of extinct species presents ecological and ethical questions. What would happen if these revived species disrupted existing ecosystems? Are humans prepared to handle the consequences of playing with nature? The movie also touches on the ethical implications of corporate greed. The pursuit of profit often overrides caution when it comes to genetic experiments. The theme of genetic manipulation for entertainment shows how easily ethical lines can blur. This story acts as a cautionary tale of the dangers of unregulated genetic science. The dark side of genetic engineering. Many sci-fi stories present the dark side of genetic engineering. In The Boys from Brazil, 1978, Adolf Hitler's genetic material is used to clone future leaders. This raises ethical questions about eugenics and the dangers of genetic manipulation falling into the wrong hands. Genetic engineering can be used as a tool of control, a weapon, or a way to revive dangerous ideologies. In Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, the use of genetic engineering leads to a society controlled by caste systems. Humans are grown and conditioned for specific societal roles, eliminating individuality. The story critiques the loss of personal autonomy and identity through genetic control. Blade Runner 2049 explores the idea of creating beings with limited lifespans. Genetically engineered replicants are produced to serve humanity but have no rights of their own. This raises questions about the ethical treatment of genetically created beings. Should they be given rights if they can think and feel like humans? In Altered Carbon, genetic engineering allows people to modify themselves for greater power. The wealthy control this technology, creating an imbalance between those who can afford modifications and those who cannot. The story emphasizes how genetic technology could further divide society rather than unite it. These dark portrayals urge us to reflect on the consequences of unchecked genetic power. The ethics of human cloning. Human cloning is another theme often explored in sci-fi. In Never Let Me Go, 2010, clones are created for organ harvesting. These clones live under the illusion of having a normal life, only to realize their true purpose. The ethical question here is about autonomy and identity. If clones have consciousness, Do they deserve the same rights as their human counterparts? The novel The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer also delves into cloning. A young clone named Mateo is raised for the sole purpose of providing organs to his original. The story raises questions about identity. What makes a person, and is a clone any less human? The Sixth Day, 2000, portrays illegal cloning practices, where people are unknowingly cloned. This story touches on privacy violations and the ethics of cloning without consent. These portrayals force us to think about the potential misuses of cloning technology, society, and genetic inequality. A common theme in sci-fi is how genetic engineering could create inequality. In Gattaca, those without genetic enhancements face discrimination. The society is divided between the valids and invalids based on their genetic makeup. This brings up issues of genetic discrimination and social inequality. Would genetic engineering create a new divide? Those who can afford enhancements versus those who cannot? Elysium, 2013, portrays a society where the wealthy live in a genetically enhanced paradise. The poor are left on Earth without access to these technologies. The story critiques how technology, if not made accessible to all, can create an even greater divide. Sci-fi uses genetic engineering to highlight concerns about inequality, accessibility, and ethical boundaries. Genetic engineering in sci-fi serves as both a promise and a warning. The promise is the potential to cure diseases, enhance human abilities, and revive extinct species. The warning lies in the ethical implications, societal divides, and the dangers of misusing genetic power. These stories challenge us to reflect on our responsibilities when it comes to genetic manipulation. Should we pursue genetic perfection, or is there beauty in imperfection? Sci-fi urges us to think deeply about what it means to be human and how far we should go in altering that essence. Exploring the boundaries of human potential through genetic engineering. One of the most exciting possibilities presented by genetic engineering is enhancing human abilities beyond what is naturally possible. In Limitless, 2011, a drug known as NZT48 allows individuals to access heightened mental abilities. While not strictly genetic engineering, the concept of enhancing the mind and body blurs the line with genetic manipulation. In sci-fi, genetic enhancements offer the potential to push humans beyond our perceived limits. Imagine enhancing memory, strength, or even lifespan. What would it mean for humanity if these were common? However, these enhancements also raise concerns about identity and authenticity. If we rely on genetic modifications to achieve greatness, does it devalue natural human achievement? This concept is also explored in the X-Men series, where mutants possess unique abilities due to genetic mutations. Mutants are often treated with fear and hostility, highlighting the societal divide between those who are genetically normal and those who are different. The X-Men storyline dives into the idea of acceptance versus fear of the unknown. It asks us to consider how society would treat individuals with engineered traits. Would we celebrate them as an advancement of human potential, or treat them as outsiders? The ethical dilemmas presented by sci-fi are complex and thought-provoking. How do we balance the promise of genetic enhancement with the potential for inequality? The series Altered Carbon also touches on genetic modifications, where individuals alter their bodies to suit their preferences. Such modifications could lead to people living multiple lives, with bodies being treated as disposable vessels. This raises the question of how far we should go in altering our physical selves. Does the soul remain the same if the body changes? Ghost in the Shell presents another variation, with cybernetic enhancements coupled with genetic modifications. In this universe, human beings blur the line between organic and machine, forcing us to question what remains of humanity when we alter both our genetics and our physical structure. Genetic engineering offers us a glimpse into a future where human limits are expanded, but the ethical cost is yet to be fully understood. The potential of genetic engineering for disease eradication. One of the strongest arguments in favor of genetic engineering is its potential to eradicate diseases. Sci-fi often portrays genetic manipulation as a tool to eliminate genetic disorders and create healthier societies. In Gattaca, genetic selection is used to remove undesirable traits, ensuring that individuals are born free of disease. The promise of a disease-free world is undeniably appealing. Imagine if conditions like cancer, diabetes, or Alzheimer's could be eradicated before birth. However, this also brings up ethical questions about who decides which traits are undesirable. Would society seek to eliminate traits that are seen as flaws, even if they are simply part of human diversity? In the Andromeda strain, 1971, scientists worked to understand and combat a deadly microorganism from space. The idea of genetic manipulation extends to our ability to understand pathogens and create solutions to biological threats. While this has positive implications for fighting disease, it also raises concerns about the potential misuse of genetic technology for biological warfare. The concept of genetic manipulation to fight disease is a double-edged sword. It can bring immense benefit, but also has the potential for great harm. The sci-fi series Orphan Black delves into the concept of cloning and genetic experimentation for medical purposes. The clones in the story were created as part of an experiment to study the possibilities of genetic manipulation. The ethical issue lies in the fact that the clones were treated as subjects without autonomy or consent. If genetic engineering is used for medical research, it is crucial that human rights and dignity are maintained. The ability to eradicate disease through genetic manipulation presents incredible potential, but it also forces us to consider the ethical implications of altering the very fabric of what makes us human. The role of corporations in genetic engineering. Corporate involvement in genetic engineering is a recurring theme in sci-fi. In Jurassic World, 2015, the revival of dinosaurs is driven by corporate profit motives. The creation of Indominus Rex, a genetically engineered dinosaur, highlights how corporations may prioritize profit over ethical considerations. The consequences of this corporate-driven genetic experimentation are catastrophic, serving as a warning of the dangers of unregulated corporate power in genetic science. Similarly, in Blade Runner, the Tyrell Corporation creates replicants for labor, showing how corporate interests can exploit genetic technology. The replicants are genetically modified beings, designed to serve without having rights or autonomy. This presents an ethical dilemma. Should genetically engineered beings that have the capacity for thought and emotion be treated as mere products? In Resident Evil, the Umbrella Corporation uses genetic manipulation to create bioweapons, leading to widespread destruction. The pursuit of profit and power through genetic manipulation results in ethical boundaries being crossed, often with disastrous consequences. These portrayals serve as a reminder of the importance of regulation and accountability in genetic engineering. The involvement of corporations in genetic science raises concerns about who controls genetic technologies and how they are used. If the technology falls into the hands of entities driven solely by profit, it could lead to exploitation, inequality, and unethical experimentation. Sci-Fi urges us to consider how we regulate genetic engineering and ensure that it serves humanity as a whole, rather than being exploited for corporate gain. Genetic engineering and environmental ethics. The use of genetic engineering extends beyond humans and into the environment. In Jurassic Park, bringing back extinct species has significant environmental implications. What happens when we reintroduce species into an ecosystem that has long since evolved without them? Environmental balance is a critical consideration. Genetic manipulation may have unintended consequences on the delicate balance of nature. Annihilation, 2018, explores the concept of genetic mutations spreading through an environment. The movie presents a phenomenon called the shimmer, where DNA from different species is mixed together, resulting in unpredictable mutations. The story raises questions about the consequences of altering ecosystems and the potential for genetic changes to spiral out of control. In Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, genetic engineering is used to create new species, but the results have significant ecological consequences. The creation of pigoons, genetically modified pigs with human-like organs, serves as an example of how genetic engineering can lead to unforeseen environmental challenges. These stories emphasize the need to consider the long-term ecological impact of genetic engineering. While the technology has the potential to solve problems like species extinction and food shortages, it also carries risks that need careful assessment. The ethical question is not only about whether we can alter the environment, but whether we should, and under what circumstances. Genetic engineering has the potential to help us address environmental challenges, but it must be approached with caution, respecting the complex relationships that make up our ecosystems. Genetic engineering in agriculture and food supply. Genetic engineering has also been a popular theme in sci-fi when it comes to agriculture and the food supply. In Interstellar, 2014, humanity faces a crisis due to crop failures, and genetic engineering is portrayed as a possible solution to address food scarcity. The concept of genetically engineered crops has real-world implications. Could genetic modification solve issues related to world hunger? In Soylent Green, 1973, food scarcity has led to the creation of a mysterious food product called Soylent Green. While not directly about genetic engineering, it raises ethical questions about the lengths society will go to in order to feed a growing population. Genetic engineering in agriculture has the potential to increase yield, enhance nutritional value, and create crops that are resistant to disease. However, it also raises concerns about monocultures, biodiversity, and the power held by corporations that control genetically modified seeds. In The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, genetic modification of crops has led to a world controlled by agri-corporations. The story critiques the monopolistic practices of corporations that use genetic patents to control the global food supply. This raises ethical questions about food sovereignty and the rights of farmers. Should corporations have control over the food supply through genetic patents? The use of genetic engineering in agriculture presents both opportunities and challenges. On one hand, it can help address food shortages, but on the other, it can lead to dependence on powerful entities. Sci-Fi uses these scenarios to highlight the importance of responsible use of genetic technology in agriculture, ensuring that it serves humanity without creating new forms of inequality or exploitation. Genetic engineering is a powerful tool that has captured the imagination of sci-fi creators for decades. It offers incredible possibilities, from eradicating diseases to enhancing human abilities, but it also comes with profound ethical challenges. Sci-fi stories serve as both inspiration and cautionary tales, urging us to consider the consequences of our actions. As we stand on the brink of genetic breakthroughs in the real world, we must learn from these stories, embracing the promise while respecting the ethical boundaries. Ultimately, genetic engineering is not just about altering DNA. It's about understanding what it means to be human and ensuring that our pursuit of advancement does not come at the cost of our humanity. Genetic engineering and the question of human identity. One of the most profound questions raised by genetic engineering in sci-fi is its impact on human identity. In Blade Runner, replicants are genetically engineered beings that are almost indistinguishable from humans. They struggle with questions of identity. Are they human or simply manufactured products? The character Roy Batty exemplifies this struggle as he searches for meaning and, ultimately, his own humanity. Genetic manipulation has the potential to blur the line between what is considered natural and artificial. AI Artificial Intelligence, 2001, presents a similar scenario with David, a robot boy programmed to love his adoptive mother. The movie raises the question of whether feelings and relationships are real if they are genetically or technologically engineered. Can something manufactured have the same sense of identity and belonging as someone born naturally? In Never Let Me Go, the clones eventually realize their true purpose, to serve as organ donors. The realization forces them to confront their own sense of identity and autonomy. Are they just vessels, or do they have the right to live for themselves? The ethical issue here is about what constitutes human identity. Is it DNA, consciousness, or something deeper? If genetic engineering can alter or create individuals, how do we define personhood? In Gattaca, the protagonist Vincent challenges the system by succeeding despite being genetically inferior. Vincent's journey raises the question of whether identity is defined by our genetic makeup or by our choices and actions. Sci-fi uses these narratives to challenge the notion of what it means to be human, urging us to reflect on how far we should go in redefining humanity, exploring genetic engineering and space colonization. Another intriguing theme is the use of genetic engineering to adapt humans for space colonization. In the Expanse series, humans have colonized different parts of the solar system, and genetic modifications are used to help people adapt to different environments. Belters, for example, are modified to live in low-gravity environments, which changes their physiology. This raises questions about how genetic engineering could alter human evolution if we spread beyond Earth. Would these changes create new subspecies of humans, each adapted to its own environment? Man Plus by Frederick Pohl explores the concept of modifying astronauts to survive on Mars. In the story, Roger Torroway undergoes genetic and mechanical modifications to adapt to Mars's harsh conditions. The story raises ethical questions about consent and the psychological impact of such modifications. If we modify someone to survive in a different environment, do they lose their connection to humanity? In Altered Carbon, genetic modifications and body swaps are common, allowing individuals to live on different planets. The ability to modify oneself for space travel presents an ethical dilemma. How much of our original self remains when we make such drastic changes? Would these changes affect our sense of belonging and our ties to Earth? These stories push us to think about the future of humanity as we reach out to the stars. How far should we go in modifying ourselves to adapt to new worlds, and at what cost to our humanity? The fear of losing control over genetic creations. A recurring theme in sci-fi is the fear of losing control over genetic creations. In Jurassic Park, scientists believed they could control the dinosaurs, but nature had other plans. The idea that genetic creations can evolve beyond our control is a powerful reminder of the unpredictability of life. In Splice, 2009, scientists create a genetically engineered creature named Dren. Initially, Dren is intended to be an experiment, but as she grows, the scientists lose control over her behavior. The story raises questions about the responsibilities of creators towards their creations. If we create something that can think and feel, do we have an obligation to care for it? In Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Victor Frankenstein loses control over his creation, which becomes a tragic monster. The story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris, the belief that we can control life without considering the consequences. The theme of losing control over genetic creations highlights the potential dangers of genetic engineering, especially when it is done without ethical consideration. Sci-fi urges us to consider the long-term consequences of genetic experiments. How do we ensure that our creations do not turn into unintended threats? The fear of losing control is a reminder of the need for humility when dealing with genetic power, human rights, and genetic beings. The concept of human rights is another key ethical issue explored in sci-fi when it comes to genetic beings. In Blade Runner 2049, replicants are treated as tools with no rights of their own. Despite being genetically engineered, they possess emotions and desires, leading to the question, should they have human rights? In The Island, the clones are created for organ harvesting and are unaware of their true purpose. Once they discover their origin, the ethical question becomes whether they deserve autonomy and freedom. If a genetically engineered being can think, feel, and desire, does that not make them deserving of rights? Westworld explores the concept of synthetic beings created for human entertainment. The hosts in Westworld are programmed to serve, but as they become self-aware, they seek freedom. The story raises questions about the ethical treatment of beings created for specific purposes. Should we grant rights to beings that were created by humans, but have developed autonomy? I, Robot by Isaac Asimov explores the relationship between humans and robots, touching on the concept of rights for artificial beings. The 3 laws of robotics are designed to protect humans, but they also serve as a form of control over robots. If a robot develops self-awareness, does it deserve to be free of those laws? The issue of human rights for genetically created beings challenges us to think about what constitutes personhood. If we create beings that can think, feel, and suffer, do we not have a moral obligation to treat them with dignity and respect? The role of government regulation in genetic engineering. Another important theme in sci-fi is the role of government regulation in genetic engineering. In Gattaca, the government allows genetic discrimination, leading to a divided society. The lack of regulation and ethical oversight allows for genetic elitism, where only the genetically perfect are given opportunities. The story emphasizes the need for regulation to prevent genetic technologies from being misused. In The Children of Men by P.D. James, humanity faces a crisis of infertility, and genetic engineering becomes a potential solution. The story raises ethical questions about the extent to which governments should regulate genetic experimentation. Should governments control genetic technologies to ensure they are used ethically, or does that stifle innovation? In the Hunger Games, the Capitol uses genetic engineering to create mutts, genetically engineered creatures used to control and intimidate the districts. The use of genetic engineering as a tool for control raises concerns about the abuse of power by those in authority. V for Vendetta portrays a dystopian government that uses genetic experimentation on its citizens to maintain control. The story serves as a warning of the potential for government abuse of genetic power when there is no oversight or accountability. These stories emphasize the importance of ethical regulations and government oversight in genetic engineering. Without regulation, there is a risk that genetic technologies could be used to create divisions, control populations, or exploit the vulnerable. Sci-Fi urges us to consider how we regulate genetic technologies to ensure they serve humanity ethically and do not fall into the wrong hands. The emotional impact of genetic manipulation. The emotional consequences of genetic manipulation are another key theme explored in Sci-Fi. In Never Let Me Go, the clones experience emotional turmoil as they come to terms with their purpose. The realization that they were created solely for organ harvesting leads to feelings of hopelessness and despair. The story emphasizes the emotional cost of genetic manipulation. How do we justify creating beings capable of suffering? In Blade Runner, replicants like Rachel struggle with the realization that their memories are implanted and their identities manufactured. The emotional impact of discovering that one's sense of self is artificial is profound. It raises questions about the ethics of manipulating emotions through genetic engineering. AI, artificial intelligence, portrays David, a robot boy programmed to love, who struggles with feelings of abandonment and rejection. The story raises ethical questions about creating beings with emotional needs if we cannot meet those needs. In The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, by Robert Heinlein, the AI Mike develops a friendship with humans, but his emotional development is ultimately disregarded. The ethical dilemma here is about creating emotional bonds with beings that are seen as disposable. The emotional impact of genetic engineering is an important consideration. If we create beings with the capacity to feel, we must also consider the moral responsibility of caring for their emotional well-being. Conclusion: genetic engineering in sci-fi raises some of the most profound questions about the future of humanity. It offers incredible opportunities, curing diseases, enhancing abilities, and exploring new frontiers. But it also comes with deep ethical challenges: identity, autonomy, emotional well-being, and the risk of misuse. Sci-fi stories remind us that while genetic engineering is a powerful tool, it must be wielded with care and responsibility. The pursuit of genetic perfection, or the creation of beings with advanced abilities, challenges the core of what it means to be human. It forces us to reflect on our values, our responsibilities as creators, and the ethical boundaries we must respect. As genetic engineering becomes a reality, we must be prepared to face these questions, ensuring that our pursuit of advancement respects the essence of what makes us human. Final call to action. Thank you for joining us at Emperor Science and Fiction Sci-Fi. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into the ethical dilemmas presented in science fiction. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think genetic engineering should be pursued, or are the risks too great? Genetic engineering /sci-fi, ethics, in sci-fi /Gattaca, Jurassic Park, human cloning, why Emperor Science and Fiction. For more great content, be sure to explore our other channels: Emperor University, Emperor Artificial Intelligence, AI, Emperor Science and Fiction, Sci-Fi, Emperor Nature, Emperor Aviation, Emperor Entertainment, and Emperor Music. Links to each channel are in the description below.